Kylie, I'm leaving you. I filed for divorce today. I love someone else. The words hit me like a slap across the face, disorienting me for a moment as I struggled to process what Todd had just said. What? You filed for divorce without telling me? I asked in disbelief, my voice shaking. How could he do this? Todd shrugged nonchalantly. I've moved out, and don't worry about the house, it's all taken care of. You're just not the wife I need anymore. My heart pounded in my chest, my anger and hurt swirling inside me like a raging storm. After 25 years of marriage, he was casually discarding me like yesterday's trash. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. Todd's expression hardened. Look, I'm not going to argue about this. It's done. I've met someone new, someone who actually understands me. His callous dismissal stung, but it also ignited a fire within me. I wasn't going to let him off that easily. Who is she? I demanded, my voice steadier now. He hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Her name is Emily Reed. She's younger, more ambitious, and she actually supports my dreams. I recoiled as if he had physically struck me. Emily Reed. The name meant nothing to me, but the implication was clear. He had been having an affair behind my back, and now he was throwing away our marriage for this younger woman. Anger coursed through my veins, overriding the initial shock. How long has this been going on? I asked through gritted teeth. Todd shrugged again, his indifference only fueling my fury. A while. Look, I'm not going to stand here and justify myself to you. It's over, Kylie. Accept it and move on. With those words, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the middle of our living room, numb with disbelief and rage. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to lash out at the injustice of it all, but I found myself paralyzed, unable to do anything but watch as the life I had known crumbled around me. As the front door slammed shut behind Todd, a single thought crystallized in my mind. I would not let him get away with this. I would find out the truth, and I would make him pay for what he had done to me, to us. The war had just begun. After Todd left, I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. How had I not seen this coming? As the initial shock wore off, memories began to surface. The late nights at the office, the unexplained absences, the distance that had grown between us over the years. Had it all been leading up to this moment? I thought back to my dreams of becoming an architect, how I had put them on hold to start a family with Todd. At the time, it had seemed like the right choice, but now I couldn't help but wonder if I had sacrificed too much. The sound of my phone ringing jolted me out of my thoughts. It was Leslie, my best friend from college. We had drifted apart over the years, but she had always been there for me when I needed her. Kylie, is everything okay? You sound upset. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. It's Todd. He filed for divorce. Says he's been having an affair with some younger woman named Emily Reed. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, Kylie, I'm so sorry. That must be devastating. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I never saw it coming. How could I have been so blind? Don't blame yourself, Leslie said firmly. This is on him, not you. He made the choice to betray your trust and throw away your marriage. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. You're right, and I'm not going to let him get away with it. What do you mean? I'm going to find out everything I can about this Emily Reed, and I'm going to make sure Todd pays for what he's done, I said, my voice hardening with resolve. Leslie hesitated. Kylie, I understand you're hurting, but revenge isn't going to make you feel better in the long run. Maybe not, I admitted, but I can't just sit back and let him walk all over me. I need to do something. There was a pause, and then Leslie sighed. All right, just be careful, okay? Don't do anything reckless. I won't, I promised, even though I wasn't entirely sure what I was capable of at that moment. After hanging up with Leslie, I sat for a long time, staring at the wall, replaying the events of the day in my mind. Todd's words echoed in my head, each one a knife twisting in my heart. As the anger and hurt swirled inside me, I made a decision. I was going to find out everything I could about this Emily Reed, and I was going to make sure Todd paid for what he had done to me, to our family. It was time to take action. Over the next few days, I became consumed by the need to uncover the truth about Todd's affair. I scoured his email and bank records, looking for any clues that might lead me to this mysterious Emily Reed. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of searching, I struck gold. a charge for a fancy restaurant downtown, one that Todd and I had never been to. I recognized the name and address immediately. It had to be where he was meeting her. That night, I waited outside the restaurant, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure what I was going to do or say when I saw them together, but I knew I needed to confront them, to see it with my own eyes. Sure enough, just after 8 o'clock, Todd's car pulled up, and he emerged, looking sharp in a suit and tie. A few moments later, a younger woman joined him, her arm linked through his. My stomach twisted into knots as I realized this must be Emily Reed. They disappeared inside the restaurant, and I waited, my anger and hurt simmering just below the surface. After what felt like an eternity, they finally emerged, laughing and holding hands. I steeled myself and stepped out from the shadows. So this is her, huh? The woman you threw away our marriage for? Todd froze, his expression shifting from shock to anger in an instant. Kylie, what the hell are you doing here? I think the better question is, what are you doing with her? I spat, gesturing towards Emily, who looked utterly bewildered. Kylie, this isn't what it looks like, Todd began, but I cut him off. Save it, Todd. I know exactly what this is. You've been having an affair, and now you're leaving me for this girl. Emily's eyes widened, and she looked at Todd in disbelief. Is that true? You're married? Todd sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. It's complicated, Emily. Kylie and we've been over for a long time. Don't feed her those lies, I snarled. We were fine until you decided to throw it all away for a pretty face. Emily shook her head, her expression a mixture of hurt and anger. You know what? I don't want any part of this. She turned and stormed off, leaving Todd and me alone on the sidewalk. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Todd rounded on me, his eyes blazing with fury. Are you happy now, Kylie? You've ruined everything as usual. I stepped closer, my hands balled into fists at my sides. Don't you dare try to pin this on me, Todd. You're the one who betrayed our vows, our family. You're the one who threw it all away for a fling with some younger woman. Todd scoffed, shaking his head. You just don't get it, do you? This isn't about Emily, it's about you and me. We've been miserable for years, and you were too blind to see it. His words stung, but I refused to back down. Well, congratulations, Todd. You've made your bed, and now you can lie in it. Alone. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there on the sidewalk. As I climbed into my car, tears streamed down my face, but I also felt a sense of relief. Relief that I had finally seen the truth, and relief that I had taken the first step towards getting the justice I deserved. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready for war. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Todd and Emily, I found myself retreating into a dark place. The sense of betrayal and anger burned like a fire inside me, clouding my thoughts and consuming my every waking moment. It was during this time that Leslie reached out to me again. We hadn't spoken since before my discovery of Todd's affair, and her call was a welcome reprieve from the turmoil that had become my life. Kylie, how are you holding up? She asked, her voice laced with concern. I sighed heavily. Not great, if I'm being honest. I caught Todd with the other woman, and it was ugly. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating. You have no idea, I replied bitterly. The things he said to me, the way he tried to justify his actions, it was like I didn't even know him anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Leslie spoke again, her tone more hesitant this time. Kylie, there's something else I need to tell you. My heart sank. What is it? I recently started seeing someone new. His name is David, and he's been wonderful, but... I felt a knot forming in the pit of my stomach. But what? There have been some red flags, Leslie continued. Little things that remind me of how Todd used to treat you. I'm worried I might be walking into another toxic situation. My blood ran cold. The thought of my best friend going through the same kind of hell I was enduring was unbearable. What kind of red flags? I asked, my voice low and serious. Leslie hesitated, and then she began to recount the little ways in which David's behavior had started to mirror Todd's. The occasional dismissive comment, the subtle attempts at control, the gaslighting when she tried to voice her concerns. As I listened, my anger towards Todd only grew stronger. How dare he treat me, treat us, like that? How dare he try to manipulate and control the people I loved most in this world? Leslie, you need to get out of that relationship, I said firmly. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't ignore the warning signs. There was a long pause, and then Leslie spoke again, her voice thick with emotion. You're right, Kylie. I can't let myself be blindsided again, not after everything you've been through. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. Todd had hurt me in the most profound way imaginable, but he wouldn't get away with it, not this time. Leslie, I need your help, I said, my voice steely with determination. I'm going to take Todd down, and I want you by my side. There was no hesitation this time. Whatever you need, Kylie. I'm with you, 100%. As we began to lay out our plans for revenge, a sense of purpose washed over me. Todd had made a grave mistake in underestimating the strength of our friendship, and he was going to pay dearly for it. The tide was turning, and this time, I was the one holding all the cards. With Leslie's help, I began to piece together a clearer picture of Todd's manipulation and deceit. It turned out that his affair with Emily was just the tip of the iceberg. He had been emotionally and financially abusive towards me for years, slowly chipping away at my self-worth and independence. As Leslie recounted her own experiences with David, she realized that he had been exhibiting similar patterns of behavior, ones that she had initially brushed off or rationalized away. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and my perspective, the truth became painfully clear. I can't believe I almost let myself fall into that trap again, Leslie said, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and relief. If you hadn't been there to open my eyes, Kylie, I don't know where I'd be right now. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. That's what friends are for. We've got each other's backs, no matter what. A steely determination settled over us as we began to formulate our plan. We knew that taking down Todd wouldn't be easy. He was a master manipulator, and he had a way of twisting the truth to suit his own agenda. But we also knew that we had something he didn't: each other. We need evidence, Leslie said, her brow furrowed in thought, concrete proof of his misdeeds that he can't talk his way out of. I nodded, already formulating a plan. I'll hire a private investigator to dig into his financial records, his dealings at work, anything that could be used against him. Leslie's eyes lit up. And I can continue to play dumb with David, feed his ego, and make him think he's got me wrapped around his finger. That way, he'll let his guard down and reveal more of his true colors. A slow smile spread across my face. It's perfect. We'll gather all the evidence we need, and then we'll strike when he least expects it. Over the next few weeks, our plan fell into motion. The private investigator uncovered a trail of financial misconduct and shady business dealings that would have been enough to ruin Todd's career and reputation on their own. And Leslie, bless her heart, played the role of the doting, clueless girlfriend to perfection, all the while secretly documenting David's increasingly toxic behavior. As the pieces fell into place, a sense of grim satisfaction washed over me. Todd had always underestimated the bond between Leslie and me, thinking that he could pit us against each other or manipulate us into submission. But he was wrong. Our friendship was stronger than his lies, our determination more powerful than his deception. And soon, he would learn that lesson the hard way. As Leslie and I pored over the evidence we had gathered against Todd and David, a sense of grim determination settled over us. We knew that taking them down wouldn't be easy, but we were ready to do whatever it took to see justice served. That's when Megan, my daughter, got involved. "Mom, what's going on?" she asked, eyes wide with concern. "You and Aunt Leslie have been holed up in here for days, and you both look like you're plotting a heist or something." I exchanged a glance with Leslie, silently debating how much to tell her. In the end, I decided that honesty was the best policy. Megan was an adult, and she deserved to know the truth. "Sit down, honey," I said, gesturing to the couch. "There's something we need to tell you." Over the next hour, Leslie and I laid out the entire sordid tale: Todd's affair, his emotional and financial abuse, and our plan to take him down once and for all. Megan listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to anger as she processed the information. "That son of a bitch," she muttered when we finished, her hands clenched into fists. "How could he do that to you, Mom? To all of us?" I reached out and placed a hand on her arm, offering what little comfort I could. "I know, sweetie. Believe me, I know." Megan took a deep breath, her eyes blazing with determination. Well, count me in. Whatever you need, I'm here to help. A slow smile spread across Leslie's face. Actually, there might be something you can do for us. It turned out that Megan's position as a high-level executive at a major tech company gave her access to resources that could prove invaluable in our quest for revenge. With her help, we were able to dig even deeper into Todd's financial misdeeds, uncovering a web of fraud and corruption that stretched back years. This is bigger than we thought, Megan said grimly, scrolling through the damning evidence on her laptop. If we play our cards right, we could not only ruin his reputation, but also have him facing criminal charges. A sense of vindictive satisfaction washed over me. After everything Todd had put us through, the idea of seeing him face real consequences for his actions was almost too good to be true. Almost. As the three of us put the finishing touches on our plan, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude, not just for the strength and resilience of my daughter and my best friend, but also for the unwavering bond that had carried us through even the darkest of times. Todd had made a grave mistake in underestimating the power of our love and loyalty, and now he was going to pay the ultimate price. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than any of us expected. Todd had scheduled a meeting at his office, no doubt to discuss some shady business deal or another. Little did he know, we had been tipped off, and we had a surprise waiting for him. As Leslie, Megan, and I made our way into the building, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was it, the moment we had been planning for, the moment when Todd would finally face the consequences of his actions. We reached his office, and I took a deep breath before knocking firmly on the door. "Come in," Todd's voice called out, oblivious to the storm that was about to be unleashed. I pushed open the door, and we filed in one by one. Todd's eyes widened in surprise as he took us in, his gaze lingering on Leslie and Megan. "Kylie, what's going on here?" he demanded, his brow furrowed in confusion. I stepped forward, my hands trembling with a potent mix of nerves and anticipation. "We know, Todd. We know everything." His expression hardened, and he opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "Don't bother denying it. We have proof. Proof of your affair, your emotional abuse, your financial misdeeds. It's all right here." I held up a thick manila envelope, stuffed to the brim with damning evidence. Todd's face paled, and he glanced around the room, his eyes darting from one of us to the next. "This is ridiculous," he sputtered. "You can't just barge in here and make these kinds of accusations." "Oh, but we can," Leslie chimed in, her voice dripping with disdain. "And we have. You see, Todd, you made a big mistake underestimating us. You thought you could play us against each other, manipulate us and control us like you always have." Megan stepped forward, her expression steely. "But you were wrong. We're stronger than your lies, stronger than your deceit, and we're not going to let you get away with it anymore." As if on cue, the door opened again, and a pair of security guards entered, flanked by a man in a crisp suit, no doubt a lawyer or a law enforcement officer. "Todd Parker," the man said, his voice grave, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and a host of other financial crimes." Todd's eyes widened in panic, and he whirled around to face me, his expression a twisted mask of rage and disbelief. You did this? You're ruining my life." I met his gaze unflinchingly, a sense of profound satisfaction settling over me. "No, Todd, you ruined your own life the moment you decided to betray your family and break the law. This is just the consequences catching up to you." As the security guards moved in to apprehend him, Todd struggled and fought, hurling insults and threats at us. But it was too late. The wheels of justice were already in motion. Outside, a crowd had begun to gather, alerted by the commotion and the presence of the authorities. And as Todd was led out in handcuffs, his expensive suit rumpled, and his face contorted in fury, Megan pulled out her phone and began live-streaming the whole thing. Within minutes, the story had gone viral. Todd's misdeeds and downfall laid bare for the world to see. His reputation was in tatters, his career in ruins, all because he had underestimated the power of 3 determined women who refused to be victims any longer. As I watched him being loaded into the back of a police car, a profound sense of closure washed over me. The nightmare was finally over, and justice had been served. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. In the aftermath of Todd's dramatic downfall, life as we knew it changed completely. The criminal charges and financial repercussions left him practically destitute, his once lavish lifestyle reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. As for me, Leslie, and Megan, a profound sense of relief and vindication washed over us. We had taken our power back, refusing to be victims of Todd's manipulation and lies any longer. And in the process, we had forged an unbreakable bond that would carry us through whatever challenges life threw our way. It was during this time that Leslie approached me with an idea, one that would not only help us move forward, but also allow us to reclaim our passions and dreams. "Kylie, do you remember how you always wanted to be an architect?" she asked one day over coffee. I nodded, a wistful smile tugging at my lips. "Of course, but that was a long time ago before." My voice trailed off, the painful memories of sacrificing my ambitions for Todd still raw. Leslie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Well, why don't you go back to school? It's never too late to chase your dreams." At first, the idea seemed preposterous. I was in my mid-40s, with a lifetime of baggage and responsibilities weighing me down. How could I possibly start over now? But then I remembered the strength and determination that had carried us through our ordeal with Todd. If we could take down a man like that, surely I could find the courage to pursue my long-abandoned passion. "You know what? You're right," I said, a sense of excitement bubbling up within me. "I'm going to do it. I'm going to become an architect, just like I always wanted." Leslie's face split into a wide grin, her eyes shining with pride. "That's my girl. And you know what? I have an idea that could help us both." It turned out that Leslie had always harbored a love for interior design, a passion that had been stifled by her own toxic relationship with David. Together, we hatched a plan to start our own firm, combining my architectural skills with her eye for design. With Megan's help and support, we navigated the bureaucratic hurdles and secured the necessary licenses and permits. Before we knew it, our dream had become a reality. A thriving business built on the foundation of our unwavering friendship and resilience. As the months passed, our client list grew, and our reputation for excellence spread like wildfire. We poured our hearts and souls into every project, infusing each design with a piece of ourselves. The strength we had found in our darkest moments, the determination to create something beautiful from the ashes of our pain. And through it all, we never lost sight of the lessons we had learned from our ordeal with Todd. We knew the value of loyalty, of trust, and of never underestimating the power of a few committed individuals to change the course of their lives. As for Todd, his fate was sealed, a cautionary tale of what happens when greed and ego consume a person's soul. He faded into obscurity, left to grapple with the consequences of his actions while we soared to new heights, unburdened by his toxic presence. In the end, our story was one of redemption, of finding the courage to chase our dreams and build a life on our own terms. And as I looked around at the incredible women who had become my family, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient than before.
"You're back at last." The girl with a big smile on her face made my husband pale and tremble. I guess it's understandable. I would have been shocked too if something unexpected like this happened. But this was his own fault. Let's make him sorry for all the horrible things he said, shall we? My name is Cecile. I'm 63 years old. I just gave my grandson a gift and cooked a meal for him for the new year. But it's not really that fancy. I can't help it if it's for my lovely grandchildren. However, I hate my food. When my children were young, it was a little easier to be extravagant. I have 2 daughters. Their names are Dana and Anna. We gave them names that rhyme because they are twins. My daughters told me that it was too easy to name them like that, just because they are twins. I couldn't say anything when they told them that, but actually, they were right. Dana, the eldest, was diagnosed with an incurable disease a little after she was born. Meanwhile, Anna is in perfect health. Dana was the only one who was weak and was in and out of the hospital repeatedly. I thought that we should all support her in her weak body as a family. But little by little, my husband started complaining. He did not want to visit her, and even when he came home from the hospital on occasion, he seems to find it a bit of a hassle. He loved her sister more and took her out on holidays and was by all accounts a good father to her. My daughters were just starting middle school at the time. I wondered if he was aware of the distance between him and his daughter, who had grown up in a different place, unlike her sister, who had lived with us all her life. It was not until our daughters were in their third grade of high school that I learned that my husband had a different view.
Why send Dana to high school? She has been in and out of the hospital so many times, so it would be difficult for her to go on to a regular high school, right?
However, there were options for her to go on to higher education, such as distance learning courses. I wanted to respect Dana's decision, but my husband wanted her to stop going to school in the first place.
It would only be a waste of money.
Isn't that too much?
In fact, even if you pay the admission fee, she will probably end up dropping out because she can't go to school. It would be a waste of money anyway, so it would be better not to let her go to school from the beginning.
You should ask Dana about that, right? It's not your decision to make without asking her. He will say it's for the best. I've noticed that as Dana has gotten older, she feels more and more inferior to her sister. She worries that she is in and out of the hospital a lot, and that she is hurting the family financially. I know my children don't need to worry about that, but our finances have certainly been tight. My husband does not make a lot of money, and due to my daughter being in the hospital, I'm unable to work many shifts at my part-time job, so our income is not stable. With twins, there was a lot of money to spend on graduation and admission fees, and no matter how much we tried to make things right, it was inevitable that they would realize that we had no money. On top of that, my husband always says that we have no money no matter how hard we work. It is true, but I wish he would refrain from saying that in front of our daughters. But my husband doesn't care about that. He said it on the day Dana was discharged from the hospital, of all days, and it became his habit. Stop saying we don't have money.
What's wrong with telling the truth?
I don't want you to say that in front of the kids. You know Dana's worried about the money for her treatment, right?
The kids, huh?
What was that line? I kinda don't like it.
I mean, what can you do? I don't think Dana is cute anyway, to be honest.
Isn't that a bit too much? She's your daughter.
It's hard to think of a child who isn't around most of the time.
I often hear that men don't understand the pain of having a child in their bellies, so they finally feel their children are their own only once they are at home. But how can he not think of her as his child just because they lived apart from each other? I wondered if I should show some understanding and talk to him, or if I should lash out at my husband as I feel. To tell you the truth, in my mind, I'm thinking that he's being mean, and I want to be angry, but it's true that parenting has changed from the norm. I gave birth to my children, and I love both of them equally, even more than my own life. I don't understand my husband, who doesn't have that feeling, but he probably doesn't understand this feeling either. I couldn't say what I wanted to say, because I thought it would be wrong to yell at him. Anyway, you should be more considerate to your children. I knew I should have said something different, but that's all I said, and left the room that day. I avoided a long conversation, partly because I didn't want my daughters to hear. After that, my husband and I had many more arguments. He started blurting out that our family had no savings because of Dana. I was honestly not interested in hearing about it, and it was unpleasant. Frankly, it was a topic I didn't want to hear. It's not Dana's fault that we don't have any savings, is it? If anyone is to blame, it's us, parents who don't make much money, isn't it? Especially my husband who has made a mistake at work and is stuck at his job. It is insane to blame our daughter, who is suffering from an illness that is beyond her control, while pretending not to know about our own shortcomings. I tried not to let Anna hear it, but I could not control myself as I was arguing with my husband, so I'm sure Anna must have noticed it. Eventually,
You gave birth to a failure. That's why this is happening now.
I think the fact that my husband's job performance was sluggish at the time, and he was being overtaken in his position by a junior colleague, was also a factor in his stress. Even so, there was no way I could have any love for someone who called my daughter a failure. And I gradually became aware that my husband and I were getting a divorce. However, I didn't earn enough money or save enough to pay for my daughter's hospital bills and school fees on my own. If it were true, I would have preferred to divorce my husband without holding back and following my feelings. But I didn't want to cause my daughters any trouble or leave them stranded on the street. I wanted to plan carefully. Then one day, when my daughters turned 18,
What? What is it now?
I heard my husband's voice on the phone. A real grumpy voice. Dana is dead. You have to come home now.
You've got to be kidding me. Do you know what today is?
It was a meeting for a project he was promoting. Some of his major clients were out of town. It wasn't really the kind of work that my husband could handle, but the person in charge of the project was hospitalized due to an accident. So my husband, who was in a lower position, was suddenly given the job. My husband seems to be feeling a lot better after he got the big job and got arrogant.
I'm annoyed just by looking at your face. And my daughter is not pretty enough on top of that.
He didn't even come home, but stayed at his office to prepare for the project. Rather than working hard for the sake of his family, he neglected his family and devoted himself to his work. In retrospect, to him, it seems like we didn't really matter.
I have an important meeting today.
I can't help but feel uncomfortable with my husband. What is family to you? I clenched my fists in anger. Anyway, I called him home several times, telling him to come back because we are having a funeral. He finally came home at night. When my husband saw Anna crying, he did not shed a single tear. On the contrary, he scolded her and told her to go to bed at a time like this.
What a nuisance to have a funeral on the day of an important meeting. She's not a very nice child until the end.
Saying this, my husband sat down on a chair in dissatisfaction. Immediately afterward, he noticed another shadow behind where he was sitting and quietly turned around. The smile of the figure behind him makes him turn pale.
What? Why? She was in the coffin just now.
Welcome home, Father. Dana grabs my husband's shoulder with a big smile. I'm tired. And Anna, who was pretending to be dead, gets up from the coffin. Great job, sister.
What the hell? What's going on?
Well, a successful surprise, huh?
Huh?
My husband's eyes widen in shock at Dana's words. Actually, this funeral was Dana's suggestion. She had been feeling much better recently, and it had just been decided that she would be able to live at home instead of being hospitalized. However, Anna had told her how her dad and I were doing, and she was aware of her father's disapproval of her, and that I was thinking of getting a divorce. I don't want to go home if things are like that. So Dana came up with the idea of a funeral. If my father hears that I had passed away, he might change his ways. That's why she went to the trouble of creating this setup and planned to switch places with her sister. I can't help but wonder if it was necessary to go to such length. But I guess my daughters felt that they could finally do something fun together. They looked like they were having a lot of fun when they were planning the project, and I felt bad for my husband, but I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was like a family bonding project. I didn't realize they hated him enough to spite him. Haha.
You should be more angry at Dana.
My husband mumbled in frustration.
You girls, how could you deceive your own father?
Are you still pretending to be a father? I'm telling you now, Mommy's thinking of divorce.
What's up with that?
I'm going with Mom too. You'll be on your own. Do you understand that you won't be our father anymore? Anna's words made my husband's face go blank for a moment. Then, he immediately turned pale and asked me if I was serious. You don't borrow something like this from a friend unless you're serious, you know. Yes, this set was specially rented by Anna from her childhood friend, whose family runs a funeral parlor. It was supposed to be given as a present for Dana. I don't know if I like the idea of a coffin as a present, but, well, I guess it's okay since my two daughters seem to be having a good time. Ha ha ha.
Why? I don't care about Dana, but I loved you, Anna.
You didn't know how much I love my sister, did you?
What?
We've been together since birth. There's no way I couldn't like my sister. Yet, you talked bad about her all the time whenever you took me out to play. Anna's cold gaze, which showed that she was really pissed off, made my husband tremble. I was trying my best to keep her from hearing things I didn't want her to hear. But kids aren't that stupid, you know. If you look at them properly, you can see what kind of people their parents are. Anna nudged Dana to agree with her. Dana nodded her head. We talked it over and decided to stay with Mom. We are 18 and she doesn't want us to work, but we can do whatever we want, part-time or otherwise, to support the family. We don't need you anymore, Dad. Anna glanced at me after hearing Dana's words. I'm sorry for everything I put you through, Mom. You wanted a divorce, but you couldn't get on, could you? Thank you for trying to protect us. But now that I'm better, we can make a living together. You're free to go, Mom. Their kind words made my heart warm. I never realized that my daughters, whom I've been trying to protect, had grown so dependable before I knew it.
Hey, think again,
is what my husband said. But I ignored him and turned to my daughters. Thank you, but it's okay. You don't have to work. What? I smiled at them. It took a while, but I actually got a better job on the side. I'd been building a little secret savings account behind Dad's back. My daughters were surprised at my words, and my husband's mouth was wide open. Even if I wanted to get a divorce, I couldn't do anything without money. I secretly studied for a certification during my travel time, and now I'm working as a medical assistant. It was hard to keep your father away from the documents. I giggle, and my husband says,
No way! When did you do that?
No wonder. I didn't even know how to use a computer until a while ago. I was just a regular old lady. But I knew I couldn't afford to be a nanny to my daughters. I was lucky that there was an ex-medical office worker at my part-time job. I have nothing to worry about because I was able to get a lot of information. I'm getting a divorce. Will you follow me? My daughters nodded their heads and said yes. My husband, on the other hand, was telling me to calm down or something. The girls called him pathetic and persistent, and he agreed to the divorce. He neglected his family for so long, but the moment he realized he'd be alone, he turned his back on them and missed them. It's disgusting. It took a long time, but I'm really glad I got rid of him. Then, it came out that my husband made a big mistake at work, and he was demoted. The bottom line is that even if my husband had attended that meeting, instead of playing a prenatal funeral, my husband would not have been promoted in the future. This development, which was no one's fault but his own, broke my husband's heart and made him lose his will to work. Now he has been overtaken by a junior colleague who is more than 10 years younger than him, and he is now an employee. Are you saying you are not being pushed around? Being used means that you are useful. My husband's incompetence has been exposed. Oops, did I say too much? My daughters offered to work for me, even though I had changed jobs, because it would be better to have some savings. But I turned them down, telling them to focus on their schoolwork. Dana had given up high school to concentrate on her medical treatment. But when she asked me if she could get a high school diploma, I said yes. Dana went on to college, and as long as she kept her health in check, she was able to find a job. Anna also went on to university and joined a local small business as a new graduate, and so on. It is not like in the world of stories, where the child who struggled did not go on to a spectacular life, but I think it is a life like my daughters. As a parent, I'm proud of them. Now Dana and Anna are married, and Dana has 3 and Anna has 4 children. When Dana, who was very frail, gave birth to a child, I was deeply moved. It was a miracle that she had 3 children. Anna's children are very naughty and beg her to play with them every time she sees them. Grandma is too old to play with them. I've started strength training for the sake of my grandchildren, but it's a secret. I don't think it's possible to have a twin grandchild, but I should say they are twins. Dana's child and Anna's child look so much alike that I wondered where the husband's genes were. From a distance, it was hard to tell which child was which. Their husbands were surprised at the strength of their genes. The grandchildren are close to each other, and the husbands are also close to each other and visit me often. So I don't feel lonely living alone when I get old. I'm in for a year. Half of the year, Anna or Dana's family comes to visit me, so I could do with a little less time alone. I think I like to spend some time alone. I'm glad that my daughters don't want me to feel lonely, so I'll just leave it at that. Well, I guess I'm going to study how to bake a cake for my grandson's birthday next month. Lately, Dana's been telling me, "Mom, haven't you gotten a little rounder around the belly?" I guess so. With 7 grandchildren, 2 daughters and sons-in-law, and myself, we have a cake for someone's birthday about every month. But it's okay because this is a sign of happiness. I will make a delicious cake.
We were headed to a fancy restaurant where we had been invited by my mother-in-law, Beth. When we got there was only 1 seat left. It seems like there is only 1 seat left, so there is no seat prepared for me? When I asked her that, she grinned and said this. This is only a family gathering, so there was no need for me to prepare a seat for you. Oh, but you'll have to pay the bill for the restaurant. Beth looked really proud of herself as she said this. But I just had enough, and couldn't take it anymore. I will never pay the bill for a stranger. My name is Megan, and I am a 30-year-old office worker. My husband, Andrew, and I have been married for 3 years now. We are currently both working together, and we have been supporting each other and living happily together. My husband does his share of the house chores, and he also works hard at his job. I respect him, and I think we have a very good relationship as husband and wife. We were happily married in that way, but there was still one problem which troubled me, and it was a big problem for me. And that problem was my mother-in-law, Beth. My husband has a little brother, Thomas, and Andrew was the eldest. So, that is one of the reasons why Beth loves my husband very much, as he was her eldest son. My husband tells me, "My mother is too overprotective and she could be a little bit of a hassle." And it seems that he's not a mama's boy, but that Beth is the one who is overly affectionate about Andrew. Probably Beth thinks that her eldest son is the most dependable, so of course she considers me, who married him, to be her enemy. And what's even more funny is that it takes about only 20 minutes by car from my parents-in-law's house to our house, so we live pretty close to each other. So that's why Beth persistently calls us to visit her nonstop. Andrew basically refuses Beth, saying that we were busy. But if he doesn't show up at least once a month, Beth would storm into our house, so he has no choice but to visit her. I wouldn't really mind if Beth only bothered my husband, but she also picks on me and harasses me, which is very annoying. "Oh, Megan, I made you some tea." Well, yours is the 3rd cup which I brewed with the used tea leaves, but I'm sure that the tea would still taste fine. "Oh, thank you very much." It's sour. There seemed to be a lot of vinegar in the tea, so it tasted extremely sour and bad. Seeing me frowning and making faces since it was so sour, Beth was holding her stomach and laughing. I love that face of yours. It really is worth teasing you around. And that is how Beth would suddenly pick on me in an unexpected way. And not only that, but she usually says something very abusive towards me. And the unfair thing is that Beth would never do that in front of my husband. Only when it is just the two of us, she picks on me and is mean to me. And lately, Beth has been picking on me again by asking me questions whether we are blessed with her grandchild or not. "Oh, Megan, when are you going to get pregnant?" Well, Andrew and I are both still working, so we're not really in a hurry about it. Besides, Andrew and I have been talking about not really planning, but waiting for an opportunity for me to get pregnant in a natural way. Well, it seems like that natural timing hasn't come at all. You are infertile, aren't you? Excuse me? Of course, you must be infertile. I really do feel sorry for Andrew for marrying a wife like you. Beth would say those horrible, abusive words to me, as if it was a normal thing to do. Why should I be the one being told this by Beth? First of all, it's not right that she sees me as her enemy just because I married her eldest son. And it's also not right that she is directly attacking me verbally with these terrible, abusive words. I was honestly overwhelmed by Beth being like this and attacking me like this. I thought about talking to Andrew about it, but he had just been promoted at his work at the time and was quite busy with work. So, because of that, I didn't want to cause him any unnecessary troubles. I should take care of this by myself. Since thinking that, I then tried various things. I tried praising Beth, and on the contrary, I also tried arguing back to her about her bullying me. But none of them worked at all, because they only made Beth even more annoying than before. Then, I had heard that Andrew's little brother Thomas was getting married. While I congratulated Thomas and his wife-to-be about their marriage, I felt a little bad for Thomas's partner, Kimberly. I'm completely sure that Kimberly would be in trouble if she finds out that her mother-in-law was such an insane, jealous old woman. Afterwards, Thomas got married successfully to Kimberly, who is now his wife, and had a huge wedding ceremony. Kimberly was very beautiful in her wedding dress, and she actually used to be a model. She had a great shape, and seeing her in her beautiful wedding dress, I thought that she was going to be photographed for a wedding magazine. Then came the first New Year's after Thomas and Kimberly got married. At my parents-in-law's house, relatives gather for a dinner party on New Year's Eve. I was sure that Kimberly would be ordered around by Beth to help out around the dinner party. If she looks like she's having a hard time, then I should be there to support her. That's what I thought to myself, but I was surprised to see what had happened on the New Year's Eve. "Oh, Kimberly, let's have a drink over there." "All right, Beth." To my surprise, Beth didn't order around Kimberly to help prepare for the dinner party at all, and just treated her nicely. "Oh, Kimberly, you're a very nice and lovely girl, and I'm just so proud of you. She's so different from my eldest son's wife, who does everything wrong when I ask her to do something for me. Having Kimberly here is enough. I don't need any other wife other than her." That's what Beth would say to all our relatives. I was filled with anger and embarrassment. It seems that Beth thought that she could be the center of attention just by being with Kimberly, who was a model, and everyone would be around her. So that's why Beth seems to like Kimberly more. On the other hand, Beth would still pick on me whenever we are alone in the kitchen. "You really are an inconsiderate person, aren't you? If someone has an empty glass, go pour a glass of beer right away. Compared to Kimberly, you're not beautiful, and the only thing you're good at is doing your best at house chores. You're a woman who is infertile and who can't even get pregnant. So just hurry up and do the chores." Beth treated me like that, and in this way, I saw a huge gap between how I was being treated and how Kimberly was being treated by Beth. I think it's amazing that she can change her attitude so blatantly. I tried not to provoke Beth any further and returned to the dining hall after listening to her accordingly. While I was eating at a table away from Beth, some of the relatives who were sitting nearby encouraged me. Beth is a person who would take things for advantage. I mean, she changes her attitude so blatantly. "You really are having a hard time, huh? Now that Beth's in a good mood from the drinks, you should also enjoy the food and drinks while she's being like that." "Thank you. Since some of the relatives are kind to me in this way, I have managed to endure the crappy treatment from Beth. But then, something unbearable happened. One day, my husband received a phone call from Beth.
"What? Dad's 60th birthday celebration?"
Yes. We were planning to all get together as a family and celebrate his birthday. Of course you will come, right?"
"Yeah, I will."
"Could you also ask Megan for her to come to the celebration too?"
"Sure, I'll ask if she can make it or not."
Beth has a really loud voice, so I could normally hear her voice from my husband's phone and I could understand what she was saying.
"Well, I think you heard all about it, but what do you think, Megan? Do you think you can go?"
Well, I thought about it. I really did not want to see Beth as much as possible. But it would create bitter feelings if I was the only one not attending Jack's 60th birthday celebration. Thomas and Kimberly would definitely be invited, and they would go, so if I don't go, then I would only be the one not attending. Well, Beth wouldn't bully me when Andrew is there with me, so I guess I'd be fine. I told Andrew that I would attend, and then the two of us went shopping for a gift to celebrate Jack's 60th birthday. About 2 weeks later, the day of Jack's 60th birthday celebration arrived in no time. We were told that the party would start at 6:30 p.m., so my husband and I went to the dinner party on time. We headed for a fancy restaurant where we had been invited by Beth. When we arrived and were shown to the private room, all the other relatives were already there.
Oh, so everyone had already arrived. You're all early.
My husband said that, and to that, Thomas replied,
No, Mother told us that today's dinner party starts at 6 p.m. What? No, it's from 6:30, right?
My husband looks at me as he said that. To that, I said, Yes, Beth called me the day before yesterday about the start time and told me that it would be from 6:30 p.m. Then to this, Beth says, I clearly said it would start from 6 p.m., didn't I? Megan, you must have misunderstood. And she began to get angry. I don't want you to talk as if it was my fault when you're the one who got it wrong. As she said that, then it hit me that I was being set up. Beth was trying to make me the bad guy, to get everyone to blame me.
Oh, there. It's not like we're going to run out of food. And now that we're all here, let's get on with it.
Jack, who was the main host of the party, said so, and it was settled for the time being. My husband and I walked to the end of the dining hall where there was an empty seat. But then I noticed something. When I got there, there was only one seat left. It can't be. It was Beth who had organized this dinner party. There was no way that Beth would not have prepared a seat for Andrew. This means that she probably did not prepare a seat for me on purpose. She probably lied to us about the starting time because she wanted to make sure we would be the last to arrive. You didn't prepare a seat for me? When I asked her that, Beth said this with a huge grin on her face. Oh, did I perhaps make a mistake? Did I miss a seat for you? I'm sorry. I thought I had enough seats for everyone, but I must have made a mistake then, Beth lied in a way that was completely easy for me to understand that it was a lie. Then Andrew said,
I'll see if I can get another seat,
and left the room. I felt a little awkward being in this room just standing around, so I left and waited for my husband to come back. Then, for some reason, Beth also came out of the room. Beth seemed to think that this was a good chance to be alone and bully me. Your panicking face was a masterpiece. Aren't you ashamed at all for doing this? If Jack or Andrew finds out about you bullying me like this, they would be furious with you. Excuse me? Of course they won't find out. I'm bullying you in a way that they won't ever find out about it. I see. But I really didn't think that you wouldn't prepare a seat for me here today. Because a wife is only a stranger, and because we're not even related by blood, you know? This is a family gathering, so there's no need to prepare a seat for a person like you. Then what about Kimberly? She's a wife too. She is special. If she's there, then everyone would also pay attention to me. I see. Well, I've had enough. Even if I could get an extra seat, I'm leaving. Well, duh, of course. Who would even allow you to attend to this party? Oh, but you will have to pay for the restaurant bill. Beth looked so proud of herself as she said that. But I have had enough, and I couldn't take it anymore. I will not obey with what Beth says anymore. Oh, do stop talking nonsense, Beth. I will never pay for someone's bill who is a stranger to me. When I said that, Beth's face turned bright red. This is not nonsense. And also, what are you saying to your own mother-in-law? Oh, no, you said it yourself, Beth, that a wife like me is a stranger. Or do you pay for other people's meals and drinks, Beth? Well, you certainly don't look like such a saint who would even do that, though. Just shut up and pay up. How persistent are you? I'm leaving now. Oh, no. Are you really leaving? When I really tried to leave, Beth began to panic. What do you want? You're the one who kicked me out, you know. Well, it's my treat for today's celebration. That's why I'm supposed to pay for this dinner party. Oh, so you mean to tell me that you showed off with this fancy restaurant with the intention of making me pay for it? Yes, that's right. So you have no choice but to pay for it. Beth's logic completely made no sense to me. I felt ridiculous and said, I'm leaving, and headed for the exit. Beth was screaming at me, but I ignored her and left the restaurant. About 5 minutes later, I received a phone call from Andrew.
Megan, where did you go? Mom said that you left on your own.
I really can't stand it anymore.
Huh? What are you talking about?
You'll understand when you hear the recording I'm about to send you. I hung up the phone and sent my husband the conversation with Beth that I secretly recorded earlier. I had actually decided to handle the situation myself without consulting Andrew about it, so I made sure to start the recording app whenever I was alone with Beth. A little while after I sent the recording, Andrew sent me a message saying, "Leave it to me." Since Andrew said that, I left him to it, and I went on home. Half an hour later, Andrew called me to tell me that he had kicked Beth out of the party and that I should go over to the party. So, I did as I was told and went back to the restaurant. And when I entered the private room, Andrew, Jack, and Thomas came over and apologized to me.
Oh, Megan, I am so sorry that I didn't realize that my stupid wife was doing something terrible to you. I'm really sorry about that, Megan. I should have watched Mom more carefully too. Megan, I am so sorry for all the pain I have caused you. I should have been the one to protect you the most.
I felt a little better when they all apologized to me that way. According to Andrew, he played the recording in front of everyone and began to question Beth right then and there. Since she couldn't deny it as the evidence was there, it seems that Jack became very angry at her and told Beth that he was divorcing her and kicked her out. Beth actually asked for Kimberly's help, but Kimberly cut her off saying, "I don't trust you since I now know the real reason why you were so nice to me." And no one took Beth's side, and Beth screamed, "Why do you believe what that woman says?" And to that, Jack responded,
That's enough. I can't do this anymore with you. I'm divorcing you.
And kicked her out of the restaurant. With Beth gone, there was room for one more person, and I was able to attend the dinner party and we celebrated Jack's 60th birthday in peace. Jack was very pleased with the gift my husband and I picked out for him, and we had a great time. We paid half of the bill, and the other half was paid by Thomas and Kimberly. After that, Jack really had divorced Beth. Beth asked Andrew and Thomas for help, but both of them were so disappointed with their own mother that they ignored her. Beth, who had been a housewife all her life, now lives alone in a rundown apartment while working part-time for minimum wage. Seeing Beth living her life like that, even though I knew this already, I thought to myself that I will never bully a wife ever. If I ever have children and they have a wife in the future, I will make sure that I will never be like Beth. For now, I will enjoy our peaceful married life as much as I can. It is unbelievable of Beth to try to get her own daughter-in-law to pay for the restaurant without preparing a seat for her. I was just really appalled at Beth's bullying and how she treated Megan. After all, that's the reason Jack divorced Beth. So, I do believe that Beth deserves what she got. I wish Megan a happy life with her wonderful husband. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My mother-in-law hates me, and once I visited her, she forced me to shop for groceries, so I went home.
Hey, you can't come in here yet. Excuse me? You need to go buy these first. Saying that, my mother-in-law Laura handed me a piece of paper which had a list on it. Is she asking me to actually get all the things in this list? You better hurry up, okay? My name is Alice, and I am a 32-year-old housewife. I got recently married to my husband, Tim. I met him at a blind date, but he approached me aggressively, and we started dating, and then we got married. I was surprised at the fact that we got married within 6 months of dating. But, considering our ages, I thought it was better to make the decision to marry him quickly. One of the reasons people were really surprised at my decision to get married so soon to Tim was because of the man I had dated before my husband. My ex, Kurt, and I had been dating since our freshman year of college, and had been together for about 12 years. We lived together for a long time, and people around us were always teasing both of us about when we would get married. I assumed that I would probably end up marrying Kurt too. But, out of the blue, Kurt had suddenly dumped me.
I know this is very selfish of me, but I want you to break up with me.
What? Why are you saying this so suddenly?
I'm sorry, but I can't imagine a future with you anymore, Alice.
Are you being serious? How could you even say that after 12 years of dating, Kurt?
I'm so sorry, but we can't go out anymore.
No matter what I said to Kurt, he insisted that he wanted to break up without giving me any good reasons. And I was just so angry that in the end, I agreed to break up with him. The first few months after the breakup were really rough for me, as I felt like I had wasted my precious 20s because of him. I drank so much that my friends were worried about me, and to top it all off, as I was also drunk, I began to pick up any guys I could find, and seeing this, my friends rushed to stop me and forced me to take a taxi back home. Seeing me like that, my friend thought that if I continued like that, it would be a bad idea, so she set me up with a blind date, where I met my current husband, Tim. My husband is a man known to be elite, as he graduated from a prestigious university, and he was working for a major corporation. He is 2 years older than me, and his parents told him that it was time for him to bring someone home for him to get married to, so he was looking for his marriage partner. And he aggressively approached me, so I fell for him easily. Looking back now, I regret that I could have made a more logical decision instead of just deciding superficially, but my husband had a great family and personal background. It didn't look that bad, so I guess I had no choice but to be deceived by him. Besides, to someone who was dumped after going out for 12 years, a partner like him for a marriage was just perfect at that time for me. All of these reasons, and with that timing, this made me decide to marry my husband. When I married Tim, he asked me to fully focus on being a housewife. I liked my job that I was working at, but not so much that I wanted to continue it against my husband's will. So that's why I became a full-time housewife. From then on, I supported my husband by doing my best at all the house chores. So I think our marriage was going well in its own way. But at the same time, there were times where I felt really bored of it too. Not working meant that I had so much time on my hands as a housewife. If I thought like that, then probably I'm more the type where I like to be busy working away. But since I got married and became a full-time housewife, I thought I should properly do my part for my husband. And so the days passed by in the blink of an eye, and a year had passed since we got married. Since then, nothing had changed so much, and we continued to go about our daily lives as usual. In my husband's family, he is the youngest as he has 2 elder sisters, Rachel and Julia, and his sisters are very friendly and nice to me, and they would often come over to our house to visit. But my husband would always make an unhappy face when Rachel and Julia comes over to visit us. Rachel and Julia were kind, but they were also very caring and reliable, and whenever my husband did something, they would get very angry at him. So, maybe because of that, my husband gets a little nervous when Rachel and Julia were around. But I had never seen Rachel or Julia getting angry at Tim like that, so when he told me about that part, I didn't take him that serious about it. Then, as another year was about to end, I received a phone call from my mother-in-law, Laura, all of a sudden. "Hello, Laura. You called me all of a sudden. So did something happen? You and Tim should come visit me this New Year's." "Pardon me? You didn't come last year, right? So that's why you should come this year. I'll show you how to spend the New Year's in our house." Saying just that, Laura hung up the phone.
Who was it from?
"It was from your mother. She wants us to visit her for the New Year's."
Well, it's true. We didn't get to go last year. It's been a while since we went, so I guess we should go then.
I thought that I was going to spend a relaxing time at home for this New Year's. I thought that I would be drinking beer, watching the TV, and taking it easy during the New Year's holidays. I had no idea that I would be going to Laura's house. And to have her contact us on Christmas Eve, with only a week or so to go until the New Year's. Originally, we had not visited my parents-in-law that much. And that's because my husband didn't want to visit them frequently. Last year, I did ask him if we didn't have to go during Christmas and New Year's or not, but he refused, saying things like,
"It's okay, my family doesn't really expect a lot out from us."
Well, I think it was probably because he would have more chances to see his sisters if we visited at that time. So, that's why we would visit them every month or so on a day when there was nothing going on. I was a little depressed about visiting my in-laws for the New Year's. It's because I had a feeling that Laura did not like me very much. When I visited Laura's house, she always talked only to Tim and treated me as if I was not there. My father-in-law, Jim, would talk to me so that I wouldn't feel unwanted, but it was not uncommon for Laura to not even look at me once. When I talked to my husband about it before, he just said,
"It's probably just your imagination. You're too self-conscious."
And the conversation ended. So I can't really rely on my husband regarding Laura. So what should I do this coming New Year's? But since Jim will be there and Rachel and Julia will probably be there, so I guess I won't have to feel too horrible. So I decided not to worry too much about it. And the New Year's Eve came in no time. My husband and I finished cleaning our own house in the morning, had lunch, and drove to Jim and Laura's house. My in-laws' house is 2 hours away from ours, so we arrived there around 2 p.m. When I got out of the car, I noticed that Jim's car was not there. Worried about his absence, I asked my husband where he had gone, and he told me that Jim was probably picking up Rachel and Julia. I was relieved to hear that, and my husband and I went to the front door and pressed the doorbell. "Yes, I'll open the door soon," Laura called out, and a few minutes later, the front door opened. "Oh, hello! Thank you for coming here all the way. Welcome back." "Laura, it's so nice to see you." Laura glanced at me, smiled only at Tim, and said, Come on in. There's cake and tea. Let's eat." She did it again. This is how she would ignore me. Feeling a little uncomfortable, I tried to go inside the house. But then, Laura stood in front of me. "Hey, you can't come in here yet." "Excuse me?" "You need to go buy these first." Saying that, my mother-in-law Laura handed me a piece of paper which had a list on it. There were many ingredients listed on the paper, including beef, lettuce, tomatoes, mushrooms, beer, and so on. Is she asking me to actually get all the things in this list? You better hurry up, okay? Oh, where is the supermarket around here? When I asked her that, Laura looked annoyed. It's your fault that you rarely show up here, isn't it? If you came here often, you would know where the supermarket is, wouldn't you? Check where the supermarkets are by yourself. Okay. Then what about the food expenses? Shall I just pay for it and ask you to pay back after? When I said that, Laura's eyes widened and she became angry. You rarely come visit my house, but you want me to pay for it? I can't believe you. Laura began to shout, so Tim came over to see what was going on.
What's wrong, Mom?
Oh, Tim, honey, Alice just tried to make me pay for the groceries.
What? Hey, don't annoy Mom like that. You should just pay for that stuff instead.
What? But then I'll pay it out from our family budget. Is that okay with you?
Huh? Pay it from your credit card. Don't pay it from our family budget.
No way. Just hurry up and go. We're about to have our tea time, so don't ruin it. Saying that, Laura slammed the front door on me loudly. How unbelievable. I was so angry at Laura's attitude, as well as the mama's boy husband and his action. I was so mad that I crumpled up the list, threw it right in front of the front door, and got in the car to go home. On the way home, I stopped at a supermarket and bought some amazing appetizers, steak, and beer. I arrived home at 5 p.m., so I took a bath to relax and drank the cold, delicious beer while eating the appetizers by myself from about 6 p.m. I was enjoying my own time and I was watching TV while getting a little bit tipsy. Suddenly, I looked over at my phone, which I had put on silent, to see if my husband had called. But there was no phone call or even a text message from my husband, even though I had come home without shopping. For some reason, that made me angry too. I was getting irritated, so I decided to distract myself by eating the delicious steak. As I was eating my steak, the doorbell rang all of a sudden. And as I was thinking who could it be at this hour and opened the door, I saw my in-laws and Tim standing there. To my surprise, Rachel began to apologize by saying, "I'm sorry for my stupid mother and brother." Both Laura and Tim's eyes were bright red. This was not because they were drunk or anything, but because they were yelled at by Rachel, Julia, and Jim, and they were probably crying. Being forced by Rachel and Julia, Tim and Laura began to apologize. Well, they sounded like they had to apologize because they were forced to. After, I took Tim into the house and the in-laws left. As soon as my husband saw that his sisters and his father were gone, he immediately became angry, saying,
Why didn't you cover for me?
He continued to complain about it, but I just ignored him. And a few days later, I met my high school friends for the first time in a while and had lunch with them. But on the way home, I saw my husband having an affair with another woman. He was walking arm in arm with a young woman. I quickly took a photo of the two of them from the shadows and sent it to my husband over text message asking him what this was all about. Then he read the message, but he didn't reply back and ignored the text message. As I waited for my husband to return home, angry at him for not replying back to me, he brought back his lover and Laura with him. Laura and his lover came in without my permission. Then Laura began to say, "This woman is much more suitable for my son than you, so you should leave my son." She even said, "Because you were unworthy, my son ended up having an affair, so there will be no alimony." Tim also took advantage of the situation and said,
"It's your fault. It's not my fault, okay?"
His lover was grinning with a victorious look on her face. Then my husband brought out the signed divorce papers. I pretended to be upset and said, "Hey, give me some time to think about it," and walked out. My husband thought that I was panicking, so he grinned and said,
"Come back soon, we'll be waiting for you."
I went into a cafe and immediately called Rachel and Julia about it. They both came right away, and I played them what Tim and Laura had said to me, which I had recorded secretly. Both Rachel and Julia was so angry and said to me, "Please send that recording to our father as well." And after sending it, the three of us then went back to the house where Tim, Laura, and Tim's lover was. My husband and Laura were so surprised that Rachel and Julia had also arrived that they fell off their chairs. "You! That's enough. Yeah, we're always angry at you, but how can we get you to understand that what you're doing is wrong here?" Both Rachel and Julia got mad at Tim first. And soon after, Rachel and Julia also got mad at Laura. "This is what happens when you spoil him, Mom. I mean, what is wrong with you? What kind of nerve do you have to approve your own son's affair?" Both Tim and Laura were frightened and tried to blame on Tim's lover. Then, both Rachel and Laura put their faces close to Tim's lover and glared at her. Tim's lover got so scared of them that she became teary-eyed and trembled, saying, I'm sorry. Rachel and Julia then made her husband promise by saying, "You will get a divorce, Tim, but you must pay the alimony to Alice." Well, there was no way not to pay for alimony when Tim even admitted that he was having an affair by himself. Then, as I was signing the divorce papers, Laura's phone rang. Apparently, she received a text message from Jim. "Oh my God, what shall I do? Jim is saying that he is going to divorce me." Laura was panicking and clung desperately to my husband with tears in her eyes. But Tim had to pay alimony to me because of Rachel and Julia, so he couldn't afford to worry about his own mother right now.
Well, don't ask me about it. I don't even have the capacity to look after you.
That was what he was saying to Laura. After that, we successfully got divorced. By the way, Tim's lover disappeared from Tim after paying alimony because she was too scared of Rachel and Julia. And it seems that Jim really divorced Laura too, and now she had forced herself into Tim's place so that she could live with him. They are now living together, and Tim is the one paying off the alimony and cover living expenses for both Laura and him. But the affair was discovered by someone at work somehow, and word spread through Tim's company, and he was given a pay cut, so apparently he is living poorly. It's what both Tim and Laura deserves. Meanwhile, Rachel had asked me if I wanted to join her company because someone quit at her place, so I went in for a job interview. They hired me as a full-time employee, and I am now working hard with Rachel. And both Rachel and Julia took me to a bar after work to celebrate for getting a new job and divorcing Tim. You know, this is our go-to place. They've had a new bartender for a couple of years now, and he's nice and handsome. Wow, really? Is he a young man? No, I think he's about your age, Alice. He's in his early 30s, I think. While having this conversation with them, we arrived at the bar. I followed Rachel and Julia and sat at the counter. Welcome! The bartender said that, so I looked at who he was. Kurt!
Alice!
To my surprise, there he was, my ex-boyfriend who dumped me after 12 years of dating. So I said, "Excuse me, I should head home," to Rachel and Julia, and I was about to leave. Then Kurt said,
"Wait!"
and stopped me.
"Can you give me a minute? There's something I need to tell you."
Okay. With that, we went outside to talk.
"I'm really sorry about what happened with us."
It's okay now. I was pretty shocked that you suddenly dumped me, but it's all in the past now. I mean, you're a bartender now, right? Did you quit your job?
No, I'm still working at the company.
Oh, so you're doing this as a side job? Why are you doing that?
I was just trying to explain about that. Actually, my father got very sick 2 years ago and he can no longer work at his factory.
What?
Without him, the factory wouldn't run well, and the medical expenses for his illness were pretty expensive, and at that time, the situation was really bad back at home. As a result, we had no choice but to close my father's factory. We were left with a debt of several $1,000s. Plus, my father's medical expenses were still expensive. So I couldn't really ask you to marry me being in that situation. Because it would be so embarrassing for you to have a husband covered in debt as soon as we get married, right? I didn't want to make you unhappy, so that's why I just dumped you back then, Alice. But I'm really sorry for making you feel horrible. I thought that I would never see you again, so now that we've miraculously met again, I felt I had no choice but to tell you.
You idiot.
Huh?
Then you should have talked to me first about it. You just left me without giving me any reasons. So do you know how hard it was for me to accept that?
I'm sorry.
Well, it can't be helped now, but are you still in debt?
I'll finally finish paying it off this month. It's a huge relief, you know. And my father's discharged from the hospital for now.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that.
You know, Alice, I won't say that I want to start over with you right now, so will you just be my friend again?
Yeah, sure. We walked back into the bar together, and then seeing that, Rachel and Julia both cheered for me happily. In the end, Rachel, Julia, and I made Kurt buy us a round of drinks, saying that it was his fault that I married to Tim, which ended up in divorce as a joke. After that, I started seeing Kurt regularly, and as time went on, we gradually grew closer and started dating again. Then, Kurt proposed to me and we finally got married. All my friends and family around me congratulated me. Even Rachel and Julia told me that I was 100 times more suitable with Kurt than Tim. After that, we had a baby, and Kurt, our son Theo, and I have been living together happily. I would like to continue to make happy memories with my husband and son, whom I love very much. Both Rachel and Julia are very cool. I would love to meet sisters like them. I'm glad Alice was able to cut off from Tim and Laura. And the fateful reunion with Kurt was also very touching. Please continue to live happily with the family, Alice. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My mill intentionally served my disliked food all the time, so I put on a show revealing her true nature.
My name is Sally, turning 30 this year. I work in a marketing company. My husband Keith is also my colleague. We got chose during the training program and got married 2 years ago. We like to do things at our own pace, so we respect each other's privacy and keep a good distance between us. We share the chores and finances completely. Keith has been living alone since he started working. I'm grateful that he can do more housework than I, who lived at home. There was nothing to complain about him, and we had a harmonious marriage. Except for one thing. Keith, Sally, welcome. Make yourself home. Thank you, Lisa. One weekend, we visited Keith's parents, who lived about 1 hour's drive. His mother, Lisa, always welcomed us cheerfully with a lot of home cooking. The menu that day, including shiitake mushrooms stuffed with meat, boiled king trumpet mushrooms with cheese, salted oyster mushrooms, and so on. Amazingly old mushrooms today. I got some delicious ones at the farmer's market, so I was excited. Lisa said happily to bewildered Keith, and I forced a smile. I had told her that I didn't like mushrooms. In other words, these dishes were her harassment toward me. It started on the first visit after our marriage. Lisa asked me over the phone if I had anything I couldn't or didn't like to eat. Without any doubt, I answered that I didn't like scallops. I had no idea that she, who never ceased to smile and seemed to be good-natured, was planning to bully me. But she surprised me with scallop gratin and salted scallops. She even prepared scallop pasta for lunch the next day. He knew I disliked it and mentioned it to her. Mom, Sally doesn't like scallops. Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. She played dumb. I was annoyed, but decided that she must have forgotten, and I let it go. Right before the next visit, she called and asked me again if there was any food I don't like. I answered, childishly, that I did not like the bitter taste of green bell peppers and Brussels sprouts. Well, I was served a lot of blows during my stay. Then it hit me that she was intentionally doing it. She didn't like me. It hurt more than it angered me. Keith sensed it too when she served things I disliked with pinpoint accuracy twice in a row. He didn't say anything at that time, but he apologized to me in the car on the way home. He looked twice as small and said, "Did I do something to make her hate me?" "No, you didn't do anything wrong." "I'm not sure. I've been taking her word and haven't been helping her with the cooking at all. Maybe I should offer to cook." "No, I don't think so." "Me either." He was very clear about this, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. That was because I wasn't so good at cooking. Keith even declared that he was going to be in charge of it at home. There was another problem. Lissa's cooking was amazing. The first time she served me scallop gratin, I thought it would be rude not to take a bite. I gathered up my courage and put it in my mouth. To my surprise, it was delicious. It tasted nothing as I'd ever had before. I disliked the smell of the sea, but there was no trace of it, and the texture and aroma of the scallops and the smoothness of the cream with the melted cheese were a perfect match. The green bell peppers and Brussels sprouts were also exquisite, and the mild bitterness beautifully accentuated the dish. I complimented the food and gobbled them down. Lissa's dumbfounded expression left such an impression on me. It was also the reason Keith couldn't get mad at her because I ate everything she served. I enjoyed the food that was supposed to be unsavory to me. It was my third visit. I devoured the mushroom dishes with gusto. Thanks to Lissa's harassment, my dislikes were decreasing. Since I was introduced to her cooking, I realized that the reason I'd been picky was that I grew up in a family that didn't care much about the food. Oh, I had no idea mushrooms could taste that good. I've been missing out on so much in my life. I rubbed my stomach in satisfaction next to Keith, who slapped his forehead. What would be Mom's true intention if you enjoyed harassment? She's a good cook, so maybe she has some pride? I don't get it. Frankly, I'm more concerned about your dad and brother's attitude than your mother's harassment. I guess you're right. Lissa lived with her husband David, who retired a few years ago, and another son Kyle, who was single. Her direct harassment was the least of my worries, but I was more annoyed with Kyle, who watched me with a smirk. Perhaps he knew that she was entertaining me with something I disliked. When I ate the food with relish, she looked puzzled, but he showed obvious dissatisfaction. He even watched my every move with unpleasant attention, and if I made the slightest mistake, he would make sexist remarks. On the other hand, David thought I was a servant, a housekeeper, or something, and ordered me around with a snap of his fingers. Keith shielded me, but I still felt degraded. You know, we shouldn't visit them anymore. I was taking advantage of your generosity, but there's something wrong with my family, he murmured after the visit. I guess you're right. No matter how good the food was, it didn't change the fact that Lissa was harassing me. I was also fed up with the male chauvinism of David and Kyle. However, if I just pretended that it had never happened, I would be left annoyed. I had an idea of how to get back to them. Okay, can we have the vinyl visit on New Year's Day? Here's something I would love to do to them. When I shared my idea with him, he seemed a little reluctant, but he agreed to go along with it. Lissa disliked me for some reason, and only put things on the table I didn't like. Maybe it was going to be the last time we saw each other. I hoped she would take my paycheck to her heart. Then came the final visit. Probably the last New Year's Day to be celebrated at my in-laws' house. On the dining table, there was a sumptuous dinner made by Lisa with a plate of A4 grade Wagyu steaks. It was a divine sight that I had never seen at my parents' house. Normally, I would be very excited, but Keith and I were anxious. I had told Lisa in advance that I wasn't a big fan of high-grade beef and preferred pork loin. She was soothing my reaction with a smile on her face, and Kyle was smirking as usual. David was indifferent and demanded wine from Lisa. These were the usual behaviors of in-laws. It was a very awkward scene. I ate the salad first quietly, then I started on the steak. Then carefully prepared ingredients and tender meat were just heavenly. Your cooking's just perfect, Lisa. A compliment came from the bottom of my heart. Oh, thank you. Lisa had a confused look on her face. Almost speaking over her, Kyle opened his mouth with a nasty smile. By the way, why are we having such an extravagant dinner? Is there something special to celebrate with expensive beef? Well, Lisa mumbled. Ugh, what a rotten character he was. Today is a very special day, right, Lisa? Huh? I put a box I had secretly brought in front of her. I opened it and showed her what was inside. It was a whole cake. Keith and I put party poppers we had hidden. Happy birthday, Lisa! Oh my god! The dry sound of explosions was followed by confetti and gunpowder. Lisa's eyes were so big in confusion, and David and Kyle were stunned. With a big smile on my face, I explained to them. Your birthday is January 1st, isn't it? Keith told me. You like steak, but David and Kyle usually get the most and only give you leftovers. Well, she gave Keith and me a stunned look. He looked back at her and said, You always entertain us on New Year's Day, and we never celebrated your birthday since I was a child. You never said anything about it either. I had totally forgotten about your birthday for so long. I'm sorry. Being married to Sally has made me realize a lot of things. Keith! She seemed to be tearing up at his heartfelt apology. In the midst of all this, Kyle clicked his tongue in his annoyance. What's this? You're scoring points, aren't you? That's what I don't like women. You're all calculating. He shook his head in disgust, and I glared at him with all my might. I'm glad to be a calculating woman. I'm much better than a 34-year-old and a 65-year-old man who do nothing and pester her all year round. What the? He was so stunned to be talked back to by me that he lost his words. His face was bright red with his mouth open. Even David, who was staring blankly at the whole cake, was furious at my rebellious attitude. Keith, shut your wife up. You haven't trained her well enough. She doesn't know her position in this house. Keith yelled back to him. You shut your mouth. You, who do you think you are? Ignoring her brow, I spoke to Lisa. How does it feel to be congratulated by someone you were harassing? Excuse me? Her face quickly turned pale. As if I were telling a child, I spoke to her softly and without hesitation. Did you enjoy doing it? Well, listen, are you happy taking care of a son who thinks that celebrating his mother's birthday is nothing more than scoring points? Are you willing to spend the rest of your life taking care of these men? Don't you envy that I'm loved and treated well by Keith? She was at a loss for words. I didn't know how she felt while harassing me. However, even if she didn't say it out loud, her kind nature was showing in her cooking. I would feel sorry if they tasted too bitter for her. Maybe she can eat a little of these mushrooms if they have the right texture. I'd feel bad if she couldn't eat anything. Let's prepare fried chicken too. I could sense her kindness in her food. Keith had told me that his late grandmother lived there until a few years ago and that she'd had assumed control over the family. Lisa had been bullied by her and given the lowest rank. She spoiled only Kyle, the eldest son, and Keith was left out. Even after her passing, the treatment of Lisa within the family did not change. When Keith became acquainted with my family, he realized for the first time that something was wrong with his family. The root of all evil in his family was David and Kyle, and Lisa was their victim. Even though I knew this, I couldn't easily forgive her for her bad behavior toward me. Still, her cooking was filled with genuine kindness and was amazing, so I wanted to give her a last chance. Keith and I would never come to this house again.
What? What are you saying?
I was talking to Lisa, but David and Kyle jumped in.
Who do you think you are? You don't have the right to decide. That's right. A stupid, emotional woman has no right to speak. Shut up!
When the normally calm Keith yelled like an erupting volcano, Kyle flinched. Using him as a shield, I suggested to Lisa, if you want to see Keith and me, and your future grandchild, please think about what you should do. Please think about what you want to do with these selfish men. For yourself. For myself, she mumbled and looked to heaven.
Don't take this black-hearted woman's word. Her goal is to break us apart.
Kyle yelled at her, but she kept silent with her eyes fixed on the birthday cake. For the first time in decades, it was prepared for her. Keith and I left the house at that point. As we were getting into the car, David followed and cursed us, but we ignored him and drove away. There was nothing more I could do. It was up to Lisa. 3 months later, Lisa left her house and came to mine. She apologized to me on her knees at the doorstep. I rushed to stop her, but she repeatedly apologized with tears running down her cheeks. She was brainwashed by her late mother-in-law that a wife was supposed to serve her family and that women were lower than men. Even after her passing, Lisa had been living under the spell for a long time. When she saw Keith and I happily sharing housework, she looked at us with amazement and jealousy. It was Kyle who took advantage of her feelings and told her to discipline me by bullying. There was a role of a mother-in-law. After being bullied herself, she believed that it was a normal thing for a mother-in-law to do. She was well brought up and was not used to being nasty to people though. Serving what I disliked was the best she could do. However, I praised her cooking and happily gobbled everything. She felt miserable being mean to such a good daughter-in-law, but she still couldn't stop herself. After our last visit, she felt emotionally drained and shut herself up in her room, except for doing the bare minimum of housework. Kyle and David complained about her lazy cooking and apparently had a great time bitching about Keith and me. As she watched her disgraceful family and thought back on my last words to her, the spell gradually melted away. She did not want to waste the rest of her life for those who didn't treat her as a human being. I could feel her suffocating pain. I almost blurted out that she should have lived with us, but Keith gently stopped me. Instead, we found her an apartment a 15 minutes walk from our house. By the way, when she announced that she was leaving, David pleaded and yelled in panic. Kyle, on the other hand, coldly stated,
An old woman who has never worked can't survive on her own. There is no way that she and Sally would get along.
David was dragged in by his arrogant attitude, and kicked her out of the house in the end. It was true that probably no company would hire an almost 60-year-old with no experience. What I didn't know was that she had some unearned income from an apartment and a parking lot business that she inherited from her late father. As soon as she lived humbly, she had no worries about her finances. Of course, she had lived for her family all her life. Gambling or squandering money had never been in her mind. It was rather more concerning for Kyle, who had never paid a cent for his living expenses at home, and David, who had retired and had to live on his savings and pensions. They relied on her for both chores and finances, and never imagined what would happen when she was gone. At first, they lived a comfortable life by eating out, buying prepared meals, and using housekeeping services, but such a life could not last. 3 months later, David got a call from the bank that his account was overdrawn and finally realized there was no balance left. Moreover, due to the poor diet, Kyle had gained a lot of weight, and David was suffering from health issues due to excessive consumption of salt and alcohol. He used to be proud of his good health, so it was such a shock for him. They must have finally realized that it was old Lisa who kept a peaceful family life. 5 months after Lisa moved out, they grew impatient with her not showing any signs of coming home and ordered her to return. However, once she had awakened from her brainwashing and realized the comfort of living alone, she had no intention of going back to her old life. Instead, Keith visited them with a lawyer, and divorce proceedings were initiated. They resisted all around, but they didn't have the money to hire a lawyer. It took a long time, but Lisa was eventually set free. In need of a new housekeeper, Kyle desperately searched for a wife, but no right-minded woman would come near that filthy house. The two, unable to lower the standard of living, kept adding their debts and garbage. They eventually went bankrupt, and the house was sold after a while as a vacant lot. They lived in the small apartment while working day jobs. They were still thinking that if Lisa saw their devastation, she would feel responsible and apologize to them. They showed no love or appreciation to her, but only expected to receive her unconditional love. What fools they are! On New Year's Day, 4 years later,
Happy birthday, Nana.
"Thank you." Lisa smiles happily as she receives a crayon sketch drawn by her soon-to-be 3-year-old grandson.
Here, Mom. It's a nice piece of meat. Eat it while it's still hot.
"Oh, how wonderful." She watches Keith, who is in charge of the grill, with twinkles in her eyes. Now she and I have come to know each other so well that we even go on day trips together. Keith is learning to cook from her on his days off and steadily acquiring her skills. My son has been receiving all of her love and affection. I'm very satisfied to enjoying her delicious meals while seeing her peaceful face. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, man and woman, it doesn't matter who does the cooking. The heart appreciates and enjoys the food prepared with love. A dining table shared with those hearts at the center of the home is the happiest thing in the world.
My mother-in-law kicks me out of my house after my husband is gone. As a result,
My husband Ken and I built our family home at the same time when we got married to each other. Our family home is the biggest purchase I ever had in my life. We both decided to cherish our family home together. But I already threw away all of your stuff, okay? I never thought that our family home would be taken away like this. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. We built our own family home when we got married and have been steadily paying for the mortgage. That new smell once you get into the newly built house, and the kind face of my sweet husband. The spacious living room, with lots of morning sunlight pouring in through the large windows, was what Ken and I dreamed to have one day. Since we were going to build our own house, my husband listened to my opinions as much as possible. Among them, I was particular about the built-in kitchen and the size and the directions of the windows. On Sundays, around 2 p.m., this window lets in just the right amount of sunlight into the room. And with that sunlight, my husband and I lay down and relaxed around the room, and even take naps. And once I brew the coffee with these delicious coffee beans, the room is filled with the good aroma of the coffee. This is what I would call my moment of happiness. But to be realistic, it truly costed us a lot to get our blissful moments with our family home. I am just really glad that I have been working properly and consistently. When we were qualified for the mortgage, I patted myself on the back for working hard this whole time. And my husband felt the same, of course. But within a month since our family home was completed, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Pam, who had been living apart from us. "You and Ken built a family home, is that right? Well, now that it's completed, I'd like for you to let me live with you both in that house. If I continue to live in this rundown house all by myself, I will get sick." Pam is single, and she's living on her own on welfare. Pam and I were not that close to each other, as I just only went to greet her when I was about to marry Ken. To be honest, it is really difficult for me to have Pam suddenly living with us as a newly wedded couple in our own home.
I know you, Anna, and I can see how my mother living with us would be a huge burden to you. So, I'll tell my mother that we can't live with her and refuse. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thankfully, my husband is a man who takes my feelings into consideration and really understands me. So then, my husband had refused Pam about her idea on living with us. And 2 years later, Ken and I had our first baby. I guess Pam thought that it was a good opportunity for her, so she suggested the idea to live with us again. Isn't it hard to take care of the baby and do the house chores all by yourself? If I get to live with you all, I will definitely help you taking care with the baby and the house chores. And besides, it's a great opportunity, so please let me live with you all. It's true that taking care of the baby and doing all the house chores requires hard work, and I would actually appreciate her if Pam would help us out. Plus, I plan to go back to work eventually, and so it would be better to have more people taking care of the baby.
Well, what do you think? I think it might be a good idea to have someone help us out at least.
Well, yes. If Pam keeps her word and helps us properly, then... Pam was really delighted when I agreed for her to move in with us on the condition that she would help me with the baby and house chores. Once we began living together, Pam took it very seriously and helped out with the baby and the house chores all on her own. Okay, well, I'll do the laundry and fold the clothes, okay? Thank you. While you're gone for the groceries, I'll look after the baby, okay? Aw, who's a good boy? You are a good boy. Thank you very much. I honestly didn't expect Pam to help me like this. I even felt a little guilty that I underestimated her. She's been really helpful around the house, and I should be really grateful of her. Or so I thought. Pam taking it seriously and helping around the house and taking care of the baby only lasted for about a week. After that, she would just slack off and relax around once my husband was gone, or doesn't even take care of my son even though I asked her to look after him. This happened a lot, and I'm starting to not trust Pam more and more. Pam hasn't been taking the house chores seriously lately, and I can't even ask her to take care of our son, let alone do the housework if she's being like that.
I see. All right. I'll talk to my mother about it.
My husband tried to warn her several times, but she wouldn't really listen to him. You know, I'm doing my best too. Anna is just being too strict here.
But you need to help us out properly. That's why we're living together in the first place.
What? Are you trying to kick me out? Ugh, please, don't be so cold about it. Ugh, please, don't kick me out because of this. Whenever Ken warned her, she either blamed me or cried to make him feel sorry for her. And so like that, Pam persistently continued to stay at our house. Pam, who no longer helps me raise and take care of our son properly, has also become annoyed with him gradually. Oh, he's crying again. He's so loud. There. Hurry up and make him stop crying already. Not only does she not take care of our son, but I feel nothing but anxiety when she is around him. Honey, I'm really afraid to let our son get close to Pam like this. I really want her to leave our home as soon as possible.
All right, I understand. I'll get my mother a new place to live on her own so that I can convince her.
My husband prepared to rent an apartment so that Pam would easily leave our home. Before I knew it, our living room was full of Pam's stuff. I have to hold our son all the time because it could be really dangerous if he bumps into Pam's stuff or puts them into his mouth. We have already warned Pam enough, but she still won't change her attitude. We will definitely persuade her to leave our home. When I was thinking that, oh no, he's gone. Why? Our son was missing from his room, where he was supposed to be sleeping in. I looked around in a panic and found Pam taking our son outside. What are you doing? How dare you take our son out without our permission? I just wanted to show off my grandchild a little. Do you have any clue how worried I was? If I took him out like this, people will try to maybe share us with something, you know? So you shouldn't worry that much. And you're being too loud shouting like that to me. I just couldn't believe that Pam would take our son out without saying anything to me. And it didn't even look like Pam was guilty about it at all, but instead, she got angry. Hearing the story, my husband got also furious. So, at once, we had Pam leave our home without question. 1 year has passed since then. Our son had turned 1 year old and gradually began to walk little by little. Then suddenly, my husband was involved in an accident on his way home from work one day and unfortunately passed away. I was at a loss of words, having lost my husband so suddenly. Why did he have to leave us? What am I going to do with my son who's still small? Even at Ken's funeral, I was so sad that I could not stop crying. Then Pam began to talk to me. Hello, long time no see, Anna. I never thought that we'd see each other again like this. Oh, Pam. For Pam, her own son had passed away. The grief of a mother who has lost her son must be very deep. I should not be the only one crying for Ken like this. I must be strong for him. I answered Pam, trying desperately to hold back my tears. It was just really so sudden. Indeed. So, since the family house belongs to my son, I'm supposed to get it, right? Huh? Then, could you leave the furnitures too? Excuse me? What is she even saying? I thought we were both grieving the loss of our beloved, but then she started talking about the house, the furnitures, and other things that didn't make sense to me at all. I was just so confused by Pam's words. And Even if she said that she would take the house, it costed about $500,000 to build it. And there's still the mortgage, which needs to be paid. Even if that's true, what about the mortgage? Oh, well, you are going to pay that, right? Excuse me? What in the world is she saying? I can't believe that Pam would even bring it up at Ken's funeral in the first place. I'm not sure that I want to talk about that right now. We're at Ken's funeral after all. But it's very important that we talk about this anyways. But now's not a good time to... Anyways, I will get the house, right? How could she be so obnoxious? Pam seems to want to get a clear confirmation from me that I would give her our house, but I was being so sad about Ken, and I was getting so fed up of Pam being like this. That's it. Enough, Pam. We are at Ken's funeral. If you continue to be like this at the funeral, please leave immediately. When I said that strongly, Pam became silent and left my side. What was she really thinking when her own son had passed away? Sometime later, after all the funeral, cremation, and such were over, I was able to calm down for the time being. I can't stay sad forever. I have to do my best and work hard to make a good living for my son. So, I left my child at daycare center and returned to work. My days were very hectic with work, house chores, and taking care of my son. Then one day, when I returned home after picking up my son, I saw all of my belongings being left on the garbage dumpster near the entrance. What is the meaning of this? My clothes, desk, and work things were all piled up in one big dump. But upon looking closely, it seems that my expensive clothes, my expensive accessories, the TV, the huge fridge, and so on, weren't taken out as a garbage.
Oh, what a great timing. You live here, right? Well, the cost of this move is...
Huh? And then the mover who was there talked to me and charged me a fee for something I couldn't really understand what was going on. Once I listened to what the mover was saying, I found out that Pam was the one who had hired him. What is she trying to do? Was Pam in my house right now? I tried to go inside, but for some reason, the front door would not open. Don't tell me that Pam has even changed the locks already. Maybe Pam had somehow gotten my house key when I was just being too busy with Ken's funeral. I immediately called Pam. What is the meaning of this, Pam? How dare you come into my house without any permission and throw out my stuff without even asking me? What's so wrong of me for taking my own son's stuff? You're not a family anymore, so get out. I beg your pardon? Ken is not here anymore, so you're not a family anymore. Get out before I report you for trespassing. Saying that, Pam just hung up the phone on me. How selfish and messed up she is. I really have to get my house back somehow. But my son began to cry and I couldn't stay out there forever, so I thought that I better go to a hotel or my parents' house. I asked the movers to move my belongings to a storage for the time being, and I left for now. And a week later, I received a phone call from Pam who sounded really upset. Hey, the police came over here and it looks like they're trying to make me leave the house. Please do something about it. How could she even say such a thing after she was the one who kicked me out? Pam was being too selfish. Even if you say so, I am not your family anymore, since I've gone through post-mortem divorce settlement. What? Post-mortem divorce? Yes, it's a procedure to terminate the relationship between myself and the relatives of my deceased husband. What? Since I am still Ken's spouse, I will inherit the house. But I have cut ties with you, and I have no obligation to have you living in my house, nor do I owe you any support. Huh? You know that I literally have nothing, and yet you're kicking me out? Yes, I did so as you wish, since I'm not your family anymore. But I took care of the baby. You're so ungrateful, and you're just really so cold and strict. Pam didn't sound like she realized what she was doing was wrong, but instead, she got angry. It's not like she didn't take care of my son much. So I really don't owe her anything. Well, this is the reaction I expected from her, though. If you say that, then I have no choice. You can live there if you want. Oh, really? You said that I can, right? I can really continue to live here, right? Yes, but instead, please pay the mortgage for the house as a one installment. Excuse me? You don't really have to pay the mortgage, which has already been paid for up until now. You only need to pay for the remaining mortgage. You should know, though, that it's a lot. What the? How could I possibly pay the mortgage on a house that has only been built for 3 years and for one installment? Well, if you can't then, the house there is mine, and you, who is not my family, should be reported for breaking and entering my house. I told her so and hung up the phone. By the way, since we had insurance, I didn't have to pay for the mortgage anymore when my husband passed away, but I don't really have to tell Pam about that. A few days later, I finally got back into our house. But it was a mess. The furnitures were damaged, and my clothes were all messy too. I took photos of each and every one of them and documented them, along with how much it all costed when I was kicked out of the house from Pam a few days ago. But even if I file a claim, there's a good chance that it'll be overlooked because Pam definitely would not be able to pay back all the money. But if Pam does anything to me in the future, I will be able to use this to make her shut up. She then contacted me asking me to pay her $1,000 fine for trespassing, but of course, I ignored it. Can't she see that I am the victim here, and that there is no way in hell that I would pay that for her? And 3 years later. In the end, Pam was not able to pay the fines, and was found guilty for being malicious, and she was imprisoned for 3 years. Pam, who had completed the 3 years, contacted me. Please, I'm really in trouble. I really don't have a place to go home, and I don't know what to do. She seemed to be using a payphone, probably getting money from random people to make calls, since it would hang up a few times while she was talking. In the end, it seems that what she is trying to say is that she has no home to go back to. The apartment my husband rented for her previously to make her leave has, of course, been terminated already. And the family home Ken and I built has already been sold, as I was afraid of Pam coming back. Well, this is what you deserve, Pam, and I have nothing to do with you anymore. So please stop bothering me and just live your life on your own, please. What? I told her so and hung up the phone on her. Then I set up the phone so that Pam would not contact me. So that was it for Pam, who has no will to live her own life on her own. I will make sure to raise my own son so well that he could live strongly all on his own. Thinking this, I laid my hands on Ken's photo with my son. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
A cesarean section? It's not meaningful unless you go through the pain of childbirth.
My mother-in-law seems to be bad-mouthing me behind my back.
Raising a child must be hard.
Even the powdered milk she brought came with a smiling face. My husband says it's a form of harassment towards me. But something is off. I feel like my husband is deliberately keeping a distance between me and his mother. How? Why? What's my mother-in-law's real intention? My name is Patricia. I'm 28 years old and became a full-time housewife after getting married. I met my husband Nicholas at a blind date when we were both working. I joined a company in the neighboring state of my hometown. Since Nicholas's and my hometowns were the same, we naturally bonded. He's the kind of person who would immediately reach out to an elderly person in need, even while on a date. I respected him for being kind to me and others without discrimination. When he proposed, I could only see a happy and warm future. I was ecstatic. However, there was one problem. The typical mother-in-law issue. My mother-in-law didn't like that her only son was being taken away from her by me. She never allowed me into their home, both before and after marriage. Our meetings were always in a restaurant for just about an hour, with only trivial conversations.
Sorry, my mom isn't a bad person, but she's a bit sulky. Dad passed away and she's lonely.
When we meet and have meals, she has a soft demeanor and seems like a very nice person. However, my husband says he's given up because there seems to be various things said behind my back. I understand my husband's explanation, but even if she sulks, it's too much. So, during Thanksgiving and New Year, only my husband goes to his parents' house. I spend those times alone at home to avoid causing worry to my parents. I always spent time alone, feeling lonely at home. As time passed, we, as a couple, had a child, a healthy girl named Madeline. Shortly after giving birth, my mother-in-law suddenly visited us.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't help during your pregnancy. You had a cesarean section, right? Is it still painful? Don't push yourself too hard. Rely on my son for anything.
I gave birth through a cesarean section due to a breech birth. However, despite my mother-in-law's seemingly polite concern, I felt irritated as my husband had told me she has said it's not meaningful unless you go through the pain of childbirth.
Oh, I don't plan to stay long. I brought some things, so I'll leave them here.
Saying that, my mother-in-law took out diapers and baby clothes.
Also, powdered milk. It makes things easier.
My mother-in-law left in a hurry, after about 15 minutes. I was disappointed once again by the extremely short visit, wondering if she had no interest in her grandchild. Still, I was grateful for the powdered milk. My breast milk supply wasn't great, and my daughter was struggling to put on weight. At that time, my daughter seemed hungry, and night crying increased. I was tired, unable to get enough sleep. Maybe I should allow myself to rely on this. While gazing at the can of powdered milk with such thoughts, my husband swiftly took it away.
Don't ever use this stuff.
What? Why? My husband sighed heavily when I asked him curiously.
Mom has old-fashioned thoughts. We absolutely can't allow raising the child with powdered milk. If you use this, people will talk bad about us everywhere. She brought it with ill intentions,
my husband said. I dumped the entire contents down the kitchen sink. I see. Maybe that's true. I remembered all the bad things my mother-in-law had said about me that my husband had told me, and I was convinced. Such coyness for the sake of meanness. In response to my mother-in-law, I continued breastfeeding, sacrificing sleep. Unfortunately, my daughter's weight started to increase. However, the night crying continued unchanged. My husband's work became busier, and overnight business trips increased. Due to the sleep deprivation from solo parenting, my body and mind were exhausted and worn out. One day, as my daughter was starting to nap, there was a knock at the door. I tensed, thinking she might wake up, but she continued to sleep peacefully. Even though I had intended to take a nap myself, suppressing the feeling of wanting to cry, I opened the front door, only to find my mother-in-law standing there. Worst case scenario. What did she come for? It was the first time she came when my husband wasn't around. Is she going to make sarcastic remarks directly? However, my mother-in-law, upon seeing me, had a surprised expression.
You look pale. Go to sleep. I'll watch over Madeline.
I was gently pushed towards the bedroom. Are you sure? I wondered if something might happen. Bad thoughts crossed my mind, but I was on the verge of fainting. I collapsed onto the bed in the bedroom and fell into a deep sleep. After a while, I heard my daughter's laughter and woke up. Outside the window was pitch black. It seemed like I had slept for about 5 hours. In a hurry, I went to the living room and my smiling daughter was being held by my mother-in-law. I'm sorry, I slept deeply. It's okay now. Thank you very much. Relieved that nothing had happened, I expressed my gratitude.
You seem to have slept well. Madeline is such a good girl. Everything is fine. What about Nicholas today?
He won't be back today. He's on a business trip.
I see.
It seems like my mother-in-law is contemplating something.
Patricia, you must be hungry. I brought some food. I'm not sure if it'll suit your taste, but let's eat. I'll use the kitchen.
Oh. Coincidentally, my stomach growled loudly. My mother-in-law chuckled and stood up. Oh, it's dirty. As I panicked, my mother-in-law raised her thumb.
That's normal. Raising a baby is a significant achievement. Take your time.
Thank you very much. Caught off guard by this unexpected interaction with my mother-in-law, I was left in bewilderment. Huh? Is this another act of harassment my husband told me about? Is she a hell of an actor? Is she a really nice person? My mind was filled with question marks. Then the two of us sat around the dining table. When Madeline started fussing, my mother-in-law said,
It's okay, shh, it's okay.
She took Madeline in her arms, allowing me to continue eating. Eating a warm meal slowly like this. When was the last time? And the food was unexpectedly delicious. The words slipped out of my mouth. Upon hearing those words, my mother-in-law showed a relieved expression.
I'm glad it suits your taste. I'm sorry for dropping by suddenly. You looked really tired, so I got worried.
I hadn't posted anything on the child photo sharing app for about 2 weeks due to parenting fatigue. My mother-in-law noticed and came over out of concern.
No matter how many times I ask Nicholas, he always says, It's okay, you don't need to come. And that you dislike me. Oh, I'm sorry,
She realized she slipped up with her words, and I was surprised. Huh? What do you mean? I've never said anything like that. On the contrary, I thought you didn't like me. We both looked at each other with wide eyes. We had talked so far, and there hadn't been anything unpleasant. Instead, it felt like chatting with my own mother, and I was relaxed. My mother-in-law wasn't the bad person my husband had described. What's going on? This misunderstanding had only one cause. My mother-in-law seemed to realize that too. Nicholas? At that moment, our daughter started crying, and her voice brought us back to reality.
Oh, it's late. I have something to do tomorrow, so I'll leave for today.
We parted ways today, in confusion, exchanged phone numbers. On another day, I visited my mother-in-law's house.
I'm sorry for inviting you over for the first time. This might be because of my son.
He said you didn't want me to come into the house.
Huh?
My mother-in-law let out a small scream.
No. I've been telling him to bring you along. When I heard that you didn't want to come, it seems there was a big misunderstanding, thanks to my son.
My mother-in-law looked sad as she sighed. My mother-in-law's house was a cute home with a white-based theme, perfectly matching my taste. As she led me into the living room, my eyes were drawn to a book placed in the corner of the room. It was a parenting magazine. My mother-in-law, noticing my reaction, seemed a little embarrassed.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have bought something like this for my grandchild.
When I asked, I found out that my mother-in-law had been studying recent childcare trends. So she had a good understanding that using powdered milk was common now.
And that magazine's feature story. It said that grandparents shouldn't frequently visit their daughter-in-law's child. It says that even if you go there, it's not a good idea to stay for a long time. Besides, my son told me you hated me. It's taken me a while to realize that. I'm sorry you had to go through so much pain. The apologetic look on my mother-in-law's face made my chest tighten. The hatchet in me disappears as my trust in my mother-in-law grows stronger. My suspicion and distrust of my husband grew stronger and stronger. My son is the only child we conceived after infertility treatment. Maybe I spoiled him too much. As I heard more and more stories, I've learned that he often claimed to be on a business trip, but actually stayed at his parents' house. He's been staying with his mother a lot lately. My mother-in-law sighed. We need to have a serious talk about my son. Saying this, she frowned. I had longed for a closer relationship with my husband and resented him for it. Why is all this happening? With suspicions about my husband in my heart, I returned home. On that day, my husband came home as usual.
I'm back, and here is a souvenir.
He handed me a souvenir from his business trip with a smile. You know, today Madeline did...
Oh, sorry. I'm tired.
He is a kind husband, but lately things have been like this. Even when I try to talk about our child, he doesn't seem interested. Before, I used to ignore it, saying, yes, you must be tired. But now, after resolving the misunderstanding with my mother-in-law, suspicions are piling up. Also, about your mother. I want to get along with her. At those words, my usually calm husband glared at me.
Mom says she doesn't like you, right?
Saying that, he went into the bath. Left alone in the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. What is making you like this? I was at a point in my life when I was struggling to make sense of it all. Then my husband's phone, left on the table, beeped a notification. I usually don't pay attention, but today, I had a bad feeling and checked the screen.
Let me know when you come this way again.
A message with a heart mark was displayed. I felt dizzy. My husband's phone was easily unlocked with his birthday, and it revealed multiple exchanges with women. He was corresponding with several women, and I looked at their profiles to see what kind of women they might be. I noticed something. First, I took a screenshot of my husband's phone screen with my own phone. All right, time to consult with Mom. The following week, my husband said he had a business trip and went to work. I also left the house with my daughter, heading to my mother-in-law's house.
Nicholas is supposed to come home in the evening.
When I explained the situation to my mother-in-law, she predictably replied, yes, today's the day my husband is going back to his parents' house for a business trip. Arriving at my mother-in-law's house, I eat the meatball spaghetti she made. It's delicious. Please teach me how to make it next time. With my words, my mother-in-law smiled.
Of course. Oh, it feels like I've gained a daughter. I'm so happy.
The misunderstanding was cleared up, and we became closer and closer as if to make up for all the time we had not spent together. Of course, without telling my husband, my daughter Madeline has become completely attached to her grandmother. She looks so happy to be cuddled.
Baby girls have a fluffy and nice smile, don't they? So cute.
Watching my mother-in-law happily holding her granddaughter, I also felt warm. As we were spending that time,
I'm home,
my husband returned. I was preparing to confront my husband, but both my daughter and I hid in the back room of the living room for now.
Welcome back, Nicholas.
I'm home, Mom. Coming back to my parents' house is really nice.
Unaware that my daughter and I were there, my husband was carefree.
You frequently come back to your parents' house. Are Patricia and the child okay?
Oh, come on. I came all the way to my parents' house. Don't talk about Patricia. She hates your mom, right? She's busy with childcare, but she doesn't do any housework at all.
Is that so? Carrying a small baby. Do you think she can do housework properly?
Huh? Haven't you been supporting Patricia a lot lately? Stop it, Mom.
Listening to the conversation, I trembled that my husband spoke about me like this.
I haven't finished work yet. I have a meeting with people from the company, so keep it quiet.
Saying that, my husband opened his computer, put on headphones, and started an online meeting. My mother-in-law began washing dishes, and my husband, whether annoyed by the noise or not, entered the room where my daughter and I were.
Huh?
Seeing me and my daughter, my husband opened his mouth wide.
I'll be back in a moment.
Saying that, my husband turned off the camera and audio, placing the computer on the nearby table.
Why is Patricia here?
My husband was surprised. I heard everything. So this is what you've been thinking about me. And you lied to both your mother and me, right? Explain to me what's going on. I quietly said this. My husband sighed.
I'm a good husband at home, so don't make a fuss. A single mother can take care of me. I thought Mom would be happy if I got married and had a child. I didn't like the idea of you and Mom getting along well. I didn't want my baby to have my mom all to herself.
Huh? Disgusting. I didn't want to know, but there's no mistake. This person is a severe mama's boy. At that moment,
How can you say such disgusting things? You gave me goosebumps. I thought you were a kind son, but this is wrong.
an angry voice resounded. Turning around, my mother-in-law, with the same expression as me, stood there.
Mom, don't say such terrible things. Am I not enough for you, Mom? Aren't I a good son? And why is Patricia here? You've been sneaking around behind my back.
My husband pleaded tearfully. I couldn't stop the chills. I have nothing left of this man. I showed her the screenshots of my husband's app that I had taken the other day. You've been doing some pretty lax things behind my back, haven't you? My husband's face turns pale.
This is...
Explain yourself, Nicholas.
My mother-in-law sharply demanded.
It's just that Mom has been cold lately.
My husband started crying. Displayed on the screen was a mature woman my husband had been in contact with on a dating app. The mama's boy, feeling neglected by his own mother, had sought comfort from mature women. It was too disgusting, and I wanted to say goodbye as soon as possible.
Mom! Mom!
My husband wailed, gradually losing composure. As I began to wonder how to settle the situation, an unbelievable scene caught my eye. Huh? My voice made both my mother-in-law and husband stop. My husband, who should have turned off his computer, was tinkering with it. On the screen, beyond the joyful figure of our daughter, both the video and sound were on. Recently, my daughter had started playing with my computer.
Isn't this bad? He's a mama's boy. It's disgusting.
The screen was buzzing with activity. Upon checking, it seemed to be my husband's colleagues from the online meeting. His embarrassing actions were now exposed to the entire company. Well done, my daughter. I silently applauded in my mind. My husband hurriedly turned off the computer, but it was already too late. He slumped down on the spot, looking helpless. Prompted by my mother-in-law, I left the prepared divorce agreement on the table and left the house.
Wait, divorce?
My husband chased after me, but my father, who had come to pick me up, delivered a silent slap. Without looking back, I got into my father's car. Returning home for the first time in a while, I told my parents everything and rested. A few days later, while packing my things at our house, my mother-in-law came to see me with a signed divorce agreement.
I'm sorry for letting you marry such a son. It was a short time, but I enjoyed getting along with you. Madeline is so cute. I was happy.
Saying this, my mother-in-law gently pinched Madeline's cheek, with tears in her eyes. I had a great time too. I'm glad the misunderstanding was cleared up. And I haven't learned your cooking yet, so can I continue visiting? When I said that, my mother-in-law's face lit up.
Is that okay?
Of course. I don't want to see Nicholas, but I really love you. And so I continued to have a relationship with my mother-in-law. As for Nicholas, after his outrageous mama's boy behavior became known in the company, he resigned abruptly, seemingly running away. He tried to plead with his mother, but she rejected him instantly. Now he's living on a rural farm in worse conditions than the cows, it seems. As for me, I now call my ex-mother-in-law Miranda, and we have regular interactions.
So, what are we making today? How about paella?
I love that. Let's make it with plenty of shrimp.
Sounds good. Our carefree, joyful conversation echoes through the air.